Hello, Austin! Welcome to Lone Star Politics right here on KVRX 91.7. I'm the Doctor of Politics, Dr. Love. And thank you so much to our sponsors for keeping KVRX alive. We are a local radio station bringing you what's going on here locally. And my show, Lone Star Politics, is all about local and state politics, and there's some federal and national stuff in there as well. But these community programs will not be available to you, like shows like In the Know, which was the past hour, without our sponsors. So thank you so much. And if you really enjoy our programming on KVRX, please feel free to donate at kvrx.org. So, this is Lone Star Politics. And I am Dr. Love, and I am here to let you know what is going on in your town. Sadly, I just read a very sad story that I'll relate to you in just a moment. It's about some really terrible things going on right around here at the University of Texas. But before I do that, I would just like to share an inspirational story with you. Not necessarily inspirational, just something positive. So I was listening to an audio program by Dr. Joe Vitale. If you've seen The Secret, which is a movie, or if you've read the book, which talks about the power of the law of attraction, you've seen Dr. Vitale. And in this audio program called The Abundance Paradigm, he talks about a mantra to kind of say in your head when you see somebody or talk to somebody. And I've been employing this mantra. I've kind of put my own little twist on it. And his mantra goes something like this. Whenever you see somebody, you think, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And you think these things, and this kind of changes your perspective on things, because you're thinking of people in a completely different light. When you see somebody, you automatically think, I love you, and thanking them. Boy, what a different world that is compared to, rushing past people to make the bus, or, if you're in New York City, pushing past people to get on the subway, standing next to people in line and acting like they're strangers. When you see somebody, you automatically think, I love you. Wow, what a difference that makes. And so it's been my goal this week to employ this tactic and be thinking this every time I see somebody. So I started out on Monday, and today's my third day doing it, and it's taken me really, it's difficult to get in the habit of thinking these things. And I've put my own little twist on it. I was just at the volleyball game today. Go Longhorns. We were playing Texas Christian University, and tonight is Think Pink Night. It is Breast Cancer Awareness Week, and this is Breast Cancer Awareness Game at the University of Texas for the volleyball team. And at the game, I was able to think these things every time somebody hit the ball. So it was great. So when the volleyball would go back and forth, I could think, I love you, thank you, and it was a great way to practice it. So that was lots of fun, and it was really good way of adjusting my mind to this concept of thinking I love you and thank you every time I see somebody. Now I recently added something that really makes me feel good, and I hope it makes others feel good around me too, which is saying you're beautiful. So when I see somebody now, I think, I love you, you are beautiful, thank you. And if you need a reason to thank them for being a creature of God, thank them for being here, thank them for however they are contributing to society, to the human race, to whatever. So that's been something that I've been doing this week it's just starting to stick. It takes a couple days of practice to get it on autopilot. I'm not there yet, but that's been great. So next time I see you, know that I'm going to be thinking, I love you, you're beautiful, and thank you. So that's my little piece of feel-good stuff going on today. Now, some of the sad news. Yesterday there was a march here in West Campus. And it was a march basically to end some very racist and harmful activity going on here at UT. It was called the Walk to West Campus. Recently, black students at UT have been attacked in West Campus. Now, they haven't been attacked with knives and guns. What's been happening is much more insidious than that. Students, I assume students, are throwing balloons filled with bleach at black students in West Campus. This has happened on 3 separate occasions. That just boggles my mind. When I do laundry and I put bleach in the water, and I mix it with my hands, I can feel it. I know it's not something good for my skin. And I can't imagine filling up a balloon with bleach or even diluted bleach, putting water in there and then throwing it at somebody in the hopes that it gets on their skin or, heaven forbid, on their face or in their eyes. Can you imagine having bleach in your eyes as you're walking down the sidewalk? Walking down the sidewalk where you live, in West Campus, at the most liberal school in the state of Texas, perhaps outside of Rice, and for whatever strange reason, black students are being attacked and discriminated against just outside of campus. And I haven't heard about this until today, until I saw the news today. This hasn't been a really big story, but that is just horrendous. And I hope that whoever is perpetrating these terrible things comes to realize just how harmful these actions are, not only to the students who are getting hurt by this harmful chemical being splashed on them, but also harmful to themselves. If this is your conduct, if this is what you think of other human beings, of other creatures of God, of other citizens, and gosh, other taxpayers, you're throwing bleach on them. What are you doing? What does that say about yourself? That's just really sad. And so my heart goes out to those that have been hurt by this and now no longer feel safe, but also to those that are doing these horrible things and really need an adjustment in their perspective. Because if you think it's okay to throw bleach on somebody because of the color of the skin, or for any reason, my goodness, I really pray for you that you get some help to get yourself aligned with what's right and good in the world. So speaking of what's right and good, we got the presidential debate going on right now. Isn't that amazing? We got 2 candidates talking, apparently from opposite sides of the political spectrum, and they're basically going to be saying the same exact thing. They're going to sound different, but the message is the same. The status quo. We're going to continue the wars. We're going to continue the war on drugs. And any improvement is going to come from the private sector. Romney's going to stress the private sector. Obama's going to say he helped grow private sector jobs. But the reality is that these two are not that different. I mean, Romney is a multi-millionaire. He's probably got $100 million. Obama at this point is a millionaire from selling his books. He probably has $10 million or so. But that's not what makes someone a good or bad politician. What makes someone a good politician, a good person, is honesty. Whether you're talking about local, state, or federal races, honesty is what I want in my candidate who I support. And I don't see honesty as a major attribute of either one of these two. 4 years ago, I hoped that I saw it in Barack Obama. 4 years ago, I voted for Barack Obama, and I was really excited about electing the first black president, getting Bush out of office, and seeing some change in America. Nobody liked Bush at the end. His approval rating was like 25%, one of the lowest in history. Everybody was excited to get him out of there. Most everybody. And here we are 4 years later. I don't dislike Obama nearly as much as I dislike Bush, but I'm just not happy. I'm sad that he did not follow through on his great promises. You see, he made some great promises, and it's just upsetting when the first presidential candidate that you finally vote into office, I voted for Gore and Kerry before, and those two lost to Bush. So this is my first president I actually elected, and here he is, he goes back on his promises. So I ask you, what do you look for in a political candidate? What's most important to you? Is it honesty, integrity, perhaps stance on the issues? Is it experience? Experience in politics? Experience in business? Maybe it's values. So think of that for a moment, and we're going to take a short break. When I come back, we're going to discuss some of the some of the characteristics that people look for in candidates and how these two stack up. And we're also going to talk about the one missing link, or shall I say the missing secret from this debate that mainstream media is not talking about. You're listening to Lone Star Politics right here on KVRX 91.7. Welcome back to Lone Star Politics right here on KVRX 91.7. I'm the Doctor of Politics, Dr. Love. Before our break, I asked you to consider what you look for in a candidate. When I was homeless in New York this summer, I was sitting in a shelter, and a gentleman next to me was telling me about how much he liked Romney. And I asked him why. He said, you can tell he's got good values. That seems to be a real big thing with Republicans, values. Especially the pro-lifers. They really view values as very important. Romney's a family man, and he sure is. My gosh, you've seen the size of his family? I think he's got like 7 sons or something like that. He's got a lot of children. And he's got tons and tons of grandchildren. I think he's got a couple dozen grandchildren. So that's one characteristic we look for, values. Integrity and honesty, something that we all admire, something that we hope for in a political candidate, and something that we really haven't seen in very few candidates. And this is kind of astonishing to me. When I've gotten to know candidates at the local level and at the state level, they have stressed repeatedly how important honesty and integrity is. Sherry Greenberg, who is a former representative here from the state of Texas, she was my professor at the LBJ School of Public Affairs, and she stressed how important it is to be honest and crystal clear with voters and with other politicians. She said, if you find out that another representative lied to you on a vote or about information, you basically are burning a bridge. That's the last time you'll trust that person. Similarly, when I was lobbying for the American Civil Liberties Union last session at the Texas State Capitol, I was told that you absolutely tell the truth 100% of the time, even if it's something that the representative does not want to hear. And the reason you do this is that if you give them wrong information and they go forward with it and it's shown to be incorrect, they're not going to trust you anymore. They're not going to pass your legislation. They might not even let you into their office. So honesty is extremely important, at least when operating within government. Admiral Bobby Ray Inman, who was a professor at the LBJ School, he's a 4-star admiral. He's worked with a number of different presidents. He was deputy director of the Central Intelligence Agency. He worked very high up in the National Security Agency. He quit the CIA because he found out that his supervisor lied to him twice. And that does not fly in government, at least amongst those with integrity in government, and I hope in business either. Admiral Inman also said that he quit a board of directors when he found out the CEO had lied to him about an affair he was having. So honesty and integrity is very important when operating in government and when operating in business. Yet it's not something we think of when we see our presidential candidates. Do we think of Obama as the most honest person? I hoped he was 4 years ago, and after I've seen him go back on his pledges and promises, I don't view him as that honest. And frankly, after his first year in office, I watched his State of the Union, and it was just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. He's such a wonderful speaker. He's so gifted and animated, and compared to Bush, there's no comparison at all. Bush was very easy to discredit and distrust because you couldn't understand him, and it's very easy to not believe him. But Obama, you just get compelled, and you love the guy when he speaks. And at that point, I knew kind of what was going on and how different it was from the story he was spinning. And it was so difficult to hear him say, things are looking good, we are actually taking care of the Wall Street mess, we're fixing this, we're fixing that, we're holding people accountable. And I knew that wasn't true. And it's so hard to see someone as charismatic as Obama spin these beautiful webs of lies, and everybody gets stuck in them. And in order to get unstuck, you really need to do your own research and find out the answers for yourself. I can't give you the answers and show you that Obama or Romney is lying. It's something that a little play on the internet and some Google searching and perhaps some quote extremist websites is what the government would label them, but really truth websites that kind of document things that really happening in the government. There's a bunch of watchdog websites that are pretty good, government watchdog websites. So Obama, I don't view as extremely honest with very high integrity. Romney just strikes me as slippery. He seems to change his story a bit, and I'm not quite sure what the deal is with Bain Capital. They seem to have made a lot of money, but they also fired a lot of people, which is fine for a company to do, and he should stand behind that. He shouldn't say Bain Capital created jobs. Bain Capital eliminated jobs to make money. That was their purpose, to make money. That's fine. That's your job as a corporation. And I hope your job is also to serve people. You know, we make money because we provide a product or service to people that's valuable, and people exchange their hard-earned dollars for that product or service. We don't make money by tricking people and cheating people. And if we do, that stream of income does not last very long. So both of these people kind of rank a little bit low for me, at least in honesty and integrity. Now, how about issues? Frankly, they look the same on issues. They just criticize each other. You know, they both criticize each other about their stance on what they would do as far as the war. Romney says you're doing it all wrong. Obama says you couldn't do it better. You're not even speaking correctly about issues regarding the war. And for the first time, like in a while, the Democratic candidate is viewed more positively regarding foreign issues and issues of international relations than the Republican. So this is Obama's got a big upper hand in international issues. Now, what is missing from this debate? We got a Democrat who supports the war on drugs, who wants to keep taxes about the same, and wants to continue to grow government, and he wants to force you to buy health care. Or we got a Republican who supports the war, is just critical of it, supports the war on drugs, who's been very critical of the current president. That's basically been his one thing that he's trying to separate him on. Oh, and he wants to cut taxes. He thinks cutting taxes is the way to fix everything in the government. But he wants to keep the size of government basically the same. He's not talking about very much cuts. And so those are two candidates. Basically the difference is one wants to raise taxes, or excuse me, one wants to lower taxes, one wants to keep them the same. But they both want to grow the size of government. They both like the idea of war. At least they both seem to be supporting the wars, the foreign wars that we've been engaged in for over 10 years now. That's right, America. I know your taxes haven't been going up all of that much at the federal level, but we've been paying for a war for 10 years. Now, Bush had the brilliant idea of cutting taxes and having a war. I don't know how you do that. I mean, try doing that. You know, start a feud with your neighbor and then start buying guns and bullets and I guess water balloons, whatever you're going to do to fight your neighbor. But you know, try earning less money to fund this. That's what Bush did. He cut income for the government, but he increased spending. You can't do that. And he did that again with Medicaid. Or excuse me, Medicare. He signed a bill that had the government pay for prescription drugs for senior citizens. This was the largest unfunded increase in government history. Unfunded. We just increased spending, no increase in taxes. So he did this multiple times. And we're doing more of the same. It's just not going to work. There's one candidate out there who's going to be on the ballot in all 50 states who is not mentioned in the media. I read the New York Times, the Financial Times, and the Daily Texan today. None of them mentioned the candidate that wants to end the war, wants to end the foreign wars, wants to end the war on drugs, and wants to balance the budget tomorrow. Now, who is that candidate? No, it's not Ron Paul. It is Governor Gary Johnson from New Mexico. Governor Johnson served 8 years as governor of New Mexico. He vetoed more bills than all the other governors in the United States combined. And now he is running as a libertarian on the libertarian ticket in the United States for president of the United States. this term. And you know what? The media is not giving him anything. They are not mentioning him. Gary Johnson's polling between 6 and 10%. So you would assume that maybe 6 to 10% of the media should cover him, or at least mention him. So that means maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, you should read something about him in some major newspaper. And that just doesn't happen. I read about Obama and Romney every day in the New York Times and Financial Times. They're always talking about them. But what about the candidate that's different from them, that wants what most Americans want, what many Americans want, which is an end to the war and an end on the war on drugs? A poll in Texas showed that 70% of Texans, a conservative state, 70% of Texans want to legalize medical marijuana. If 70% of Texans want medical marijuana, what do you think the rest of the country wants? In reality, polls show that, I think Gallup polls show that over 50% of the population in the United States wants medical marijuana, but the federal government is refusing to do so. In fact, Lamar Smith, that's right, our local congressman here, Congressman Lamar Smith from Texas, he is the head of the committee that would deal with medical marijuana. And he has refused to hear the bills, and he refuses to reclassify medical marijuana or be involved in its reclassification. Right now, marijuana is classified as a Schedule I narcotic. Heroin is a Schedule I narcotic. Cocaine is a Schedule II narcotic. According to the federal government, cocaine is less harmful and addictive than marijuana. Does anyone else think that's correct? Because I know Obama certainly doesn't. So why is this the case? Because we got idiots like Lamar Smith refusing to take action and just kowtowing to the FDA, who says that there is no legitimate use for marijuana. That's ridiculous. Nobody believes that. And if you do, you need to start reading, because there are plenty of uses. If you look at Harvard studies, that's right, government, I pick a Harvard study over a government study. They say that medical marijuana is useful for those who suffer from nausea, who are prone to vomiting, who are suffering from pain, chronic pain especially, epilepsy, seizures, insomnia, anorexia, all kinds of things. AIDS wasting syndrome, who are on chemotherapy and need to stimulate their hunger, all kinds of things. And yet he says there's no legitimate use for it. Even government studies show that there are very good uses for medical marijuana, and yet our government is refusing to address the issue. I bet you tonight, neither one of them mentions medical marijuana. I bet you it's not even on the plate, and that's a huge deal. Consider this. 50% of high schoolers in Texas will smoke marijuana before they graduate high school. 50% of those who graduate high school will try marijuana at least once. I was not one of those 50%. I did not smoke marijuana in high school. I first tried it in college. Now, if 50% of those that graduate, now granted, these are the graduates, these are not the dropouts. 50% of those who graduate are trying this substance. What does that communicate to them when the federal government tells them it's one of the most harmful substances on earth? These students aren't stupid. They know it's not one of the most harmful substances on earth. They know that heroin and crack and meth and cocaine are much more dangerous than marijuana, yet marijuana is classified with the worst of them. So how can these graduating students who are going to go off to college and become contributing members of our society, how can we expect them to trust the government or believe in the government when clearly the government is just wrong on this issue? There's no question about it. And economists also support this. Economists know that if you legalize marijuana, you generate tax revenue for the government. You also save money because you're not locking people up for doing something that is either good for their health or recreationally enjoyable. People do all kinds of things for recreation. People put all kinds of drugs in their body for recreation. Alcohol, for example. Nicotine. Yes. When you first start smoking cigarettes, it's a lot of fun because you get this really big buzz, and then it becomes a major addiction. I don't recommend it, and it certainly is a recreation. Coffee. I would argue that people drink coffee for enjoyment. Enjoyment is recreation to me. So if we put these other substances into our body for recreation, and we know that alcohol impairs driving and, hurts the liver and is related to all kinds of different diseases and disorders long term, how come we're so prejudicial against marijuana being used recreationally? In fact, Romney was asked how he feels about the war on drugs. He says he's against legalizing recreational marijuana. How come? And Romney, if you are such a small government proponent, how come you want the government involved in my personal life? How are you going to enforce that? Do you want government agents in every home in America to make sure we're not smoking marijuana in the privacy of our own homes? Do you want government agents watching us in bed to make sure that we're not engaged in homosexual activities, which you believe are wrong and immoral, and that the government should outlaw same-sex marriage? Is that the kind of America you envision with small government? Because to me that sounds like 1984. If you haven't read it, George Orwell's novel 1984 is not only a wonderful read, interesting, and lots of fun, it's also extremely scary and relevant to today. As technology improves, I'm noticing that it's becoming extremely easy for the government to spy on you. Take out a credit card. Now you may notice that there's a chip in it. American Express, the clear cards, you'll see a chip in it. If you go to Whole Foods, I was at Whole Foods 2 weeks ago, and I bought, I'm actually doing the Master Cleanse right now. If you don't know, the Master Cleanse is where you stop eating food and you just drink lemon juice, maple syrup, and water with a little cayenne pepper. That's all you eat. And I'm on day 10, which is the last day. And I've wanted to clear out my body since I did my heroin study. If you are just tuning in, a couple months ago in the summer, for a month, I did a study for a pharmaceutical company where I was basically given heroin, and they were measuring levels in my body and measuring my heart during the process. It was a painkiller medication, and so that's what we were doing. And I'm cleansing some of that yuckiness out of my body with the Master Cleanse. So I'm doing this for 10 days. So I'm buying my lemons and my maple syrup. I'm staying in line at Whole Foods, and I look down. I'm about to swipe my credit card, and there's a little line that says, touch RFID chip here. Now, what's an RFID chip? That's a radio frequency ID chip, which is something that's in credit cards. It's in our student IDs here at the University of Texas. And what it is, it's this little chip that when it's scanned, it basically gives you a unique number. It identifies you. It's like a barcode on a product, but it's unique to you, or it's unique to your credit card or your ID. Our passports right now have RFID chips, even though when the decision was being made, Secretary Clinton got overwhelming information from people that they did not want it in their passports. People overwhelmingly said no. It was like 90% of those respondents said they did not want it in our passports, and yet they still put it in. What does that tell you about government serving the interests and doing the will of the people? So I was proud of Whole Foods actually labeling them RFID chips. We should get comfortable with this. We should not get comfortable with this word. We should acknowledge this word and understand what it is and notice it when we see it. Those easy tags we have in our cars that allow us to go through tolls in some places without waiting in line to pay, that just tags us. That is an RFID chip. There's a reader, and when you go through it, it scans it, it knows exactly who you are, and it bills you for it. So that's what we have in our credit cards. And with technology like this, the government can very easily track you, or really private companies can track you as well. This kind of technology is very Big Brother-ish. Again, if you don't know Big Brother, check out 1984 by George Orwell. And imagine if you have an RFID chip in your wallet, which we all do. If you have a credit card, if you have a student ID, it's in there. Imagine if they had RFID readers in doorways. They could quite easily track where you go. Is that something that you want? It's certainly not something I want. And we're seeing more and more spy technology from the government. Last session in the Texas State Legislature, we had the State Department for, who are the state police? The state troopers. We had them petition for license plate readers in their cars. the Department of Public Safety. They want license plate readers in their cars. What does that mean? It means when a car drives by on the street, this reader picks up every license plate there as it drives by. So it basically knows who is where, when. My question is, why? Why does the state government want to know everybody who is in a certain location at a certain time? Is that information helpful? Is that relevant to a crime? The police force has enough trouble solving crimes as it is. Do you want to pile on a bunch of unhelpful information and expect them to sort through it and to solve crimes? A friend of mine had her purse stolen, and she had a lot of money in it, and she also had some gold and platinum in it. And so it was thousands of dollars of stuff. And she went and filed a police report. And then the police basically sent her back a form letter saying, thank you for filing your report. If you want anything done, you need to follow up. Which basically means when you file a police report, when you go to the people who are supposed to solve crimes, their default response is to not do anything. That's the default. That's what we're paying for. You get your bike stolen, they do nothing. They just report it and say, okay, it's a crime statistic. You're basically reporting to a statistician by doing that. So they send back a form letter saying, if you want something done, you need to follow up with us and basically insist that we do something. That is how overloaded the police department is. Either overloaded or lazy or incompetent. Pick your pick. I'll say overloaded because I don't know. But that's how much information, how many crimes they have to solve, that their default response is to just not do anything when you report a crime to them. Now the state police, the state troopers, they want to collect everybody's license plate. They want to collect the license plates of law-abiding citizens who are just out shopping, who are out at a concert, who are at school, who are at their job, wherever, who are just on the road. They want to collect that information for who knows what reason. Why would you do that when you can't solve the crimes that you have now? It's just absolutely absurd. And I don't think, and I could be wrong on this, but I don't think that collecting everyone's license plate is going to solve any crimes. It's just not. It might tell you 10,000 people are on the road that day. Is that really going to get you anywhere? And you don't know who the passengers are. Well, maybe we could have cameras there and identify everybody who goes on the road. That is a surveillance state that nobody feels comfortable in, that just provides so much data. It's just really not helpful. It's impossible to sort through and find the needle in the haystack when you just keep on piling more and more hay on there. You are listening to Lone Star Politics right here on KVRX. I'm the Doctor of Politics, Dr. Love. We've been talking about the encroaching police state and how technology is enabling a big brother state across the United States, but specifically here in Texas. We're also talking about the presidential candidates, their qualities, why people vote for them, and kind of their different stances on issues. And we also talked about the sleeper candidate, Libertarian, of course, who is not mentioned at all in the media, Gary Johnson, governor of New Mexico. He was a Republican, and he is just being completely ignored by the media, and he's being left out of the debate tonight. The debate going on right now only has two people that are basically saying the same thing. Big government, war, war on drugs, war on terror, war, war, war. That's what they're saying. One's saying cut taxes, one's saying leave taxes alone or raise taxes on the wealthy. That's what you got right now. Where's the person that's saying cut spending? Where's the person that's saying cut entitlements, which means Social Security and Medicare? Where's the person who says balance the budget, end the war on drugs, don't bomb Iran? He is being left out and omitted from the debates and the media. Sadly, Gary Johnson, who has positions on issues that I strongly agree with, that I think most people agree with, which is peace, which is freedom, which is government accountability and government restraint, that position on those issues is being left out deliberately from these debates. The last independent or non-Republican Democrat to be involved in a debate was Ross Perot. This was way back when. I was in 3rd or 4th grade at the time, and Ross Perot was polling around like 15 or 20%, something like that. And they let him into the debates. And it was interesting to have a third party there. It was between George H.W. Bush, William Jefferson Clinton, and Ross Perot, billionaire Texan Ross Perot. And since that time, I believe there has been a change in the requirement to get into the debates. I think it's over 20%. It might be 25%. There's no way in heck anyone's going to get 25% when their name is omitted from the media. Most Americans are oblivious to most things. And, I mean, gosh, I didn't know about UT students being attacked in West Campus. Black UT students are having bleach water balloons thrown on them as they return from class or return to their homes at night in West Campus. This is happening. This happened recently, and I didn't know about it until today. And I'm relatively informed. I check out news, and I keep my ear to the ground, and I see what's going on. Most people don't do that, so most people are completely oblivious. So the idea that the average voter is going to hear about a candidate who actually shares their values and wants to do what they want to do without it being covered in the media is absolutely absurd. I mean, how are you going to reach these? How would Gary Johnson reach these people if the media just leaves him out? It's ridiculous. More recently, not more recently, but a last election cycle in city government, there was one candidate who was almost omitted from the media. It was very strategic and very odd to see. It was Dr. Laura Presley. Dr. Presley has her PhD in chemistry from the University of Texas, and she owns a small business here in Austin. It's called Pure Rain Drinking Water, which is a fluoride-free water that she sells at like Whole Foods and specialty health food stores, things like that. Now, Dr. Presley has been speaking out at City Council on a number of issues for a while now, and she ran against Mike Martinez. For some reason, when the Chronicle discussed candidates, it omitted Dr. Presley. It even mentioned Clay Defoe, who ran for mayor. It was his first time running for a position. I think he's 26. He's a young guy and has very little experience, but it had some really intelligent things to say. They discussed him, but they omitted discussing Dr. Presley. Absolutely amazing, the media blackout on certain candidates and positions. It's sad that the media can control what we see and hear and think. And I thank you for tuning in to broaden your perspective. And you don't need to believe everything or anything that I say. You can check it. You can check everything that I say online. There are many different search engines that provide a lot of data for the curious of mind. Also, many great books. Today I was in the library and I gave myself about a 2-hour vacation. I grabbed 10 books on one subject and rifled through them as fast as I could. Now I used a technique called photo reading. It's from Learning Strategies, and basically what it is you page through it really quickly and then you go through it again, kind of skimming the text, and things kind of pop out at you. As you rifle through the book the first time, your subconscious kind of absorbs it, and when you go through again, you kind of find what you're looking for. Now the important thing is when you go through a book, you have to have a purpose. So I had a purpose for every book that I was going through. I was trying to find an answer to a question. And I'd usually find that answer, and I wouldn't read things that I wasn't looking for. So if the book is on cooking and I'm looking how to cook a steak, I don't read the recipe for creme brulee. I just breeze right through that. I go right to the steak recipe. Once I find it, close the book, on to the next book. And so this was really fun for 2 hours. You not believe the information you can get from a library. For free, mind you. It is just wonderful. And I encourage you, if you enjoy reading, or if you enjoy learning, or if you enjoy information, visit your library and just pull out 5 or 10 books on one subject and just read the table of contents of them, see how the books differ, and maybe rifle through them or skim them, speed read them. Read the beginning and end of chapters, and just try to take in as much as you can and get the perspective of all these different authors on a single subject. And my goodness, you'll be amazed at how wonderful your brain feels. I feel like I've been doing push-ups in my brain. It's fantastic, and your knowledge on this subject becomes so rich getting the perspective of different authors. Sadly, we often get our news from one source. We often get our information from one source, and that really clouds our perspective on different issues. So I invite you to get your information from a different source. I've been reading the New York Times and the Financial Times because those are the papers that the business school provides to us for free. And I've noticed that the New York Times is very, very upfront about supporting Obama and criticizing Romney, and has a very liberal agenda to it. And that's fine. I know the bias of the paper. The Financial Times, frankly, gives me the news much quicker without as much bias. Maybe it's got a conservative bias, but I find I get much more information in much fewer sentences in the Financial Times. Fox News I don't find to be unbiased. I find to be extremely biased. But it's good to watch Fox News and CNN to see the comparison of the two things. So I invite you to broaden your news intake if you indeed consume the news, and see what another channel is saying about the same issue, and see how that changes your perspective. One of the books I was reading today talked about passion for purpose, and during the spiritual purpose of it, it invited you to reverse perspective on your life. So imagine that you're walking, let's say, through the forest, or you're just behaving in your everyday life, and think about yourself and think about what you're doing. Say you're going about your everyday life, and you're doing a routine activity. You're talking to people. You're doing your job. You're communicating with your family. Whatever you do on a regular basis. Now reverse the perspective to where you are everything else in the environment but you. So let's say you sit at a computer desk all day and do work. Now imagine that you are your chair, the computer, the window, your desk, your pen, your co-workers. Imagine you are everything but you. It's an amazing shift. You see yourself from the perspective of all these different things, and it's like, wow, this is really interesting. By looking at things in a different perspective, we really broaden our understanding of the world and of ourselves. When I went through this exercise, I thought for a moment, if people saw me on a regular basis, the things that I did, how would they feel about me? And to be honest with you, it was kind of negative. I'm a social person when I'm involved with people and I'm talking with people. When I'm not, I'm really kind of engrossed in what I'm doing. So if you were to see me, I guess, in the library reading, you might not have a positive opinion of me. You might think I'm kind of an aloof jerk, which is, it's sad to me that if you were to see me in a lot of activities in my daily life, that the perception might not be positive. And so I'm thinking that I need to increase my joy, my level of joy and enthusiasm when I do these things. If I'm smiling and reading, your perception of me is probably a lot more positive than if I have a real serious face and I'm angrily gripping the book. So by reversing the perspective, by looking at me from the point of view of my computer, of my chair, of people around me, of fellow students and classmates, that was really helpful to me to understand kind of who I am and how I'm coming across, and working on that. Professor Doggett at the business school, he's an amazing professor and has had lots of business experience. We were going through a case today. In business school, you go through case studies. Let's say Walmart is deciding whether or not they want to buy from China or something, and that's a case study, whether or not they're going to make this decision, or how a new company, like, let's say a startup like Facebook, how are they going to get investors to grow their business and update their software and their servers and so forth. So we're going through a case study, and he cut through all the nonsense and said, listen, give me your recommendation. What does this company need to do at 8 a.m. on Monday morning to set things right? And I thought about that. I said, Dr. Love, what do you need to do at 8 a.m. Monday morning to get your life headed in the right direction? What do you need to do immediately, as soon as possible, to fix whatever issues or problems you're dealing with, and get headed in the right direction. And I just thought that was such a wonderful way of putting it. What do you, let me ask you, what do you need to do 8 a.m. Monday morning to deal with your biggest issue or problem? Or what do you need to do 8 a.m. Monday morning to capitalize on your greatest opportunity? Either if you're either fixing a problem or capitalizing on an opportunity. If you're not doing either of those, I don't think you're breathing. So think about that for a moment. We need to take a short break, but imagine that you are a business, your life is a business, or you're being analyzed like a business, and you're either trying to solve a problem, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a family issue, maybe it's a work issue, maybe it's a personal issue. I often have times being on time or being organized. My room is very disorganized and my desk can be cluttered at times. If you're facing these issues, what do you need to do immediately? What's the first thing you need to do Monday morning when you get back to business to fix that problem? Or if you have lots of opportunities in front of you, you're working on a new business venture, maybe you just started dating somebody and that's a big opportunity. Maybe you just found a book that's really inspirational, it's gotten you jump-started in your spiritual world. Or maybe you're just getting involved in the political scene. You want to run for office, or you want to work for a candidate, or you want to follow the presidential elections or the local elections. You see an opportunity for growth, for learning, for involvement. What do you need to do to capitalize on your biggest opportunity? Maybe it's read about elections. Maybe it's follow a couple election blogs, or meet some political candidates. Maybe it's read about read about this new job that you want to take, or this new sales position that you're gunning for that would allow you to increase your income. Whatever it is that you want to grow, your opportunity, what do you need to do to capitalize on that opportunity? So think about that. If you could make one change at 8 a.m. Monday morning that would have the greatest positive impact on your life, what would it be? You are listening to Lone Star Politics right here on KVRX 91.7. Welcome back to Lone Star Politics right here on KVRX. I'm the Doctor of Politics, Dr. Love. Right before the break, I asked you a question. What would you do at 8 a.m. Monday morning as soon as you possibly could get to work, or as soon as your personal business opened? What would you do that would have the greatest positive impact in your life? What could you do to solve one of the biggest problems in your life, or take the first step towards solving it? Or what could you do, what would be the first step you would take to capitalizing on the greatest opportunity in your life? Now, I went through this exercise today, right after class. As soon as my professor said, what would you do 8 a.m. Monday morning to fix things, to fix this problem? I immediately went to the library and I meditated and I said, let's look at my strengths, my weaknesses. How can I fix my weaknesses and how can I capitalize on my strengths? And the first thing I said was, I need to follow through on the promises that I make myself. So if I say I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. and go running, I need to do that. Not necessarily because I need to go running, but because I need to keep promises to myself. I can't compromise with myself. When I say I'm going to do something, I tell myself I'm going to do something, I need to do it. Otherwise, when I tell myself I'm going to do something, it's kind of an idle promise or an idle threat. I can say, I'm going to wake up every morning at 5 a.m. this week if I don't do well in this test, or if I don't work hard tonight, or I just need to do this because I need to get in shape, something like that. But if I know I'm going to relent on that promise, if I'm going to go back on it, then, what good is that? If I break my word to myself, what good is my word? Maybe I don't break my word to anybody else, but if I break my word to myself, am I really living with integrity? And can I really make the improvements in my life that I want to if I can't follow through on what I promised myself I would do? For example, a month ago, I promised myself that I would keep my desk clean. And last night, my desk was absolutely a mess. I stopped making that promise to myself, and I stopped following through on that. But that ends today. I'm making a public promise. From here on out, I'm going to keep my word to myself. When I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And that is my first step towards growth. The second thing I need to do is apply what I read and learn. I've read dozens of self-help books, listened to lots of different audio programs, and I've learned a lot of really interesting, helpful stuff. And the problem is that I've learned it but haven't implemented it. So I've learned a time management strategy, but I didn't employ it. I just learned it, or I read it, never really applied it. What's the purpose of learning something that can help you in your life if you don't apply it? So that's my second thing. I'm going to apply what I learn, or I'm going to stop reading until I apply everything that I've gone over so far. So those are two things I'm going to do Monday morning, in reality starting right now, to improve my life and get myself going on the right track. Now, this past week I met a very interesting gentleman who is a health expert who told me something fascinating. Did you know that there's a health benefit to walking around on grass without your shoes on? He said that's called getting grounded. So the idea is that throughout human history, we have been living in a very different way than we are living right now. Not only with technology, but also just, clothing and shelter and the way we socialize and the way we live. So basically we're getting back to nature here. We're connecting our bodies actually physically with nature, with the earth, by walking around without our shoes on. Now you don't want to walk on concrete, you want on soil of some sort, soil, grass. Make sure it's, there's no broken glass or anything in there. But, he said for 15 to 45 minutes every day, you should walk on, you should get grounded, as he says, and walk around without your shoes on, in bare feet, in the grass or in the mud, or in the soil. Mud would be the most fun. Last time it rained in Austin, I played around the rain in the mud for a good 20 minutes, and it was awesome. When you feel that mud squish between your toes, you just know you're alive. You haven't felt that good since you were a kid playing with finger paints. I'll tell you, it's amazing. So you don't need to take my word for it or his. You can look up health benefits of walking without shoes on, or getting grounded, something like that, if you'd like more information. Now lastly, I want to touch on Think Pink. That is the Breast Cancer Awareness Week going on right now across the country and at the University of Texas. In fact, tonight is the Think Pink volleyball game. I like the idea of people being conscious of different diseases. That's important. And I have to ask you, who doesn't know about cancer? Who doesn't know about AIDS? Do the AIDS ribbons really do anything beneficial? Does wearing pink really do anything beneficial? And if you want to support breast cancer, I believe you should give money to breast cancer research. If you want to stop cancer, which 1 in 4 of us will get in the United States, give money to cancer research. But the idea of wearing pink as a means of fighting disease doesn't make sense to me. I think we're all aware of breast cancer. In fact, everyone I've spoken to and I've asked, have you heard of breast cancer? They've all said yes. Yes, I have. So I'm not quite sure what the awareness part is of it. Now I have to tell you, it's fun. It feels good. And if the purpose of it is to feel good and not fight cancer, then that's fine. That's all well and good. I mean, it's fun going to the volleyball game and seeing everybody wearing pink and having the survivors stand up and everyone cheer them and kind of giving their applause and support to those women that have survived breast cancer. But let's not fool ourselves and think we're fighting cancer or AIDS by wearing a ribbon or wearing a pink shirt. And in fact, I think we're actually wasting resources. You look at the NFL, when they do, they'll wear like pink shoes and like pink gloves for that one game to support breast cancer. Why not take that money and donate it to a charity that helps people with cancer, or donate it to cancer research? And the really sad thing is that there are cures for cancer out there that are not being used by the pharmaceutical company because they're not that profitable. They're not as profitable as chemotherapy. Marijuana, for example, there's good data. There are many published studies to show that THC, the active ingredient in marijuana, and cannabidiol, another ingredient, when used together, inhibit cancer cell growth and kill cancer cells in culture without hurting healthy cells. So ingredients in marijuana, which you can grow in your backyard if it were legal, can actually fight cancer. Now, why is this so harmful to the pharmaceutical company? Because you can grow your own medicine. You don't need to go get chemotherapy. So there are a variety of ways, and I've also heard there's other natural ways to cure cancer. I've heard fig seeds somehow prevent cancer. I don't know. I'm sure you can look up cure for cancer and find all kinds of different stuff. But it's sad to me that all these people are dying of cancer, which is I believe, a treatable disease, at least much more so than we are today, and in a much less harmful way than we're doing it today. You know, chemotherapy is a poison we're pumping through our bodies. There's no reason we should be doing that when there's safer ways to fight this awful disease. But I think we're going about it the wrong way when we're trying to fight cancer by wearing pink shirts rather than actually coming to grips with the fact that there are cures out there and we should be using them rather than being stuck in the paradigm that curing cancer means poisoning our body with chemotherapy. Have a wonderful week, and as I said at the beginning, I love you, you're beautiful, and thank you.
It's on the ballot in Colorado to legalize marijuana, to regulate marijuana like alcohol. I think it speaks for itself. I think it's going to be the first of 50 state dominoes that are going to bring rational drug policy to this country. Citizens of Denver 6 years ago voted to decriminalize marijuana on a campaign based on marijuana being safer than alcohol. It's going to happen in Colorado. If it doesn't happen in Colorado, it's soon to happen. We are at a tipping point. It's because we're talking about it, and the more we talk about it, the better people understand that this is just like the prohibition of alcohol. How does having a president work that would veto all kinds of stuff? I would have vetoed the Patriot Act. I would have never established the Department of Homeland Security, and I would have never then established the TSA. As President of the United States, I would have vetoed the National Defense Authorization Act, allowing for arrest and detainment of you and I as U.S. citizens without being charged. This is why we fought wars in this country. I am the only candidate advocating a balanced budget now. If we don't balance the budget now, we are going to find ourselves in a monetary collapse. What's a monetary collapse? Very simply, it's when the dollars that we have don't buy a thing because of the accompanying inflation that goes along with borrowing and printing money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar that we spend. Balancing the federal budget now means taking on the entitlements. Medicaid, Medicare. It means taking on military spending, taking military spending back to 2003 spending levels, believing the biggest threat to our national security is the fact that we borrow and print money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar that we're spending. I am the only candidate that would abolish the Federal Reserve if Congress would pass that legislation. It's an inside game. Treasury prints money, Federal Reserve gives the money to the bank, gives money to the banks at 0%. Do the banks loan it out to you or I? No. They buy treasuries in a closed loop. It's like Bernie Madoff with a printing machine. It is an inside game.